In customer success, we try to use a personal touch versus a custom touch when the moments really matter. Just like in marketing, one-to-one marketing has become very sophisticated, as you know, but so has our BS meter. We know when a machine sends us a message.
A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast. Invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Reducing time to first value, increasing perceived value, doing things that don't scale, scaling personalization. These are just some of the topics that we take on in a very practical episode of the B2B Growth Show. My name is Ethan Beute. This episode is in the CX series here on the show, and our guest is Jordan Olivero. He's got great tips about things that he's doing with video, with his executive team, managing handoffs from the sales team, and a lot more. As I said, it's very practical, and I hope you enjoy it. Welcome back to the Customer Experience Podcast. We're talking about the power of moments, doing things that don't scale. You know they don't scale, but you do them anyway. About giftology, about being your own PR firm inside your company for you and your team. I've got a gentleman here who's the director of customer success at Swimlane. He was a customer success and business consultant and advisor for years. He spent a dozen years at IBM and departed as the senior manager of customer success. Jordan Olivero, welcome to the Customer Experience Podcast.
Thank you, Ethan. It's a thrill to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we some of our team members met up with you up in Denver at a customer success meetup. So you're right up the road from us.
That's right. Not too far away.
You came highly recommended. I'm excited for this conversation. And I'm going to start where we always start, which is defining customer experience. I argue that it's the single most important thing our companies produce and deliver, but I think it has a variety of definitions. How do you look at customer experience?
Well, I think customer experience is a combination of different impressions that we give to a customer by delivering on our brand promise. I think it's a function of customer success. Other function being in customer outcomes, the desired outcomes that the customer intended in purchasing the software, the product, or service. And so, customer experience is crucial. And when done very well, it complements those outcomes and drives the retention and expansion that companies are looking for today.
That's awesome. I love that you touched on brand. That's another way that we've talked about it here on the show before. Brand being this kind of holistic, all-encompassing thing that everyone is ultimately responsible for. You say that customer experience is a function of CS. Where does brand sit for you? Is that a marketing function?
Brand, yes, is a marketing function. If our promise from how we position ourselves relative to our competitors is one of customer intimacy and excellence in service and high personal touch, then we need to deliver on that kind of promise. We won't schedule and automate every single touch point. We'll likely have touch points that are not scalable, that are highly personal, so we can humanize that engagement.
Awesome. I look forward to following up on doing things that don't scale, because it's one of those things that I think a lot of people see it on paper and they're like, cannot do it. We can't do that. That won't scale. So I'm looking forward to that. But before we get too much deeper, just for context so that people can understand where you're coming from as you share your experience and your expertise, tell us a little bit about Swimlane. What is that all about? How's your team? How are you doing there? What's Swimlane all about?
Yeah, Swimlane is all about the analysts who are overwhelmed with the number of alerts they're getting. The kind of work an analyst does is often very administrative and quite mundane. So what Swimlane does is removes that mundane task from being so burdensome in their day-to-day, and it gives them back time so they're highly productive so that they can work on more interesting, complex kinds of things. So Swimlane, is a platform of that does automation and orchestration to alleviate some of that pressure on the analysts today.
It's good. It sounds like another theme that we've had on the show before, which is this finding that new healthy balance between humans and machines, letting the machines do the thing that machines are good at and letting humans do the complex and interesting analytical work. So love that. What types of analysts are we talking about? Like who are, if you were to describe 2 or 3 of your ideal customers, who are these people?
Ideal customers tend to be security operations centers, which are responsible for protecting the brand that they work for. In some cases, there's MSSPs out there who are managed security service providers who will protect another brand, but they'll do it as a service. Those are the kinds of organizations, those are the kinds of groups or departments that need to be highly productive because there's a talent shortage out there today. There's just not enough people that are capable to handle the kind of volume from all these attacks by the offense. So we're helping the defense protect these brands and these entities, organizations, government agencies, and we're just making them more productive. So it's a win-win.
Cool. Love it. And I love the name. It reminds me, I was a high school swimmer. So it's like I could, those little swim lane markers and watching the black line on the bottom of the pools. You try to keep moving forward. So good. So we had a really great conversation before we hit record. And so I want to get into some of the things that we only drove by really quickly around this idea of customer experience and being everyone's responsibility, but CS having a special role in that. One of the books that really inspired you that we just chatted about briefly was from Chip and Dan Heath, who are kind of in that vein of business, psychology, research-based, popular and approachable, highly functional. I think of like Dan Pink in that same zone. Talk a little bit about the power of moments and how that comes into play for you.
I read The Power of Moments a year ago, and it really transformed the way I looked at the customer journey. And I like the research because they broke down the kinds of things that are common across any memorable, lasting impressions that we have. Things that you may have done in college, you still talk about. Things that happened in your childhood likely didn't happen by accident. They happened by design. So how do we do the same sort of things in our customer experience? And these moments that are powerful or memorable or lasting for customers often have 3 common traits to them. There's types of moments that are really important. There's the pits in that experience, in that journey. There's the peaks in the journey, and then there's the transition, the beginning and the end. Those are the places where you have an opportunity to make a moment that really lasts with the customer. So we've, as Swimlane, as a team, looked across the customer journey. We started with right at the decision points to buy Swimlane up until they make decisions to renew or expand their work and business with us. We looked across, okay, what are all the touch points and who owns that touch point at this moment in time? And how can we avoid those pits first? Make things a little more pleasant, reduce the friction, reduce customer fatigue, and just reduce that effort that they have to spend in dealing with us. How can it be easy to deal with? And I could go on and on about these transitions. I can give you more examples if you'd like those.
Yeah, that'd be great. It sounds like you've mapped the entire customer journey. So A, how did that project go? How many people were involved? Where did you start? And then B, how did you identify kind of the peaks and the pits? And are you creating specific moments? Kind of tie everything you started with there, just tie it together a little bit tighter. And maybe start with who took this on, mapping the customer journey? Because it's obviously a big deal. I think a lot of people think they have sight into it, but it sounds like you really mapped it at some level of detail.
We didn't map it in detail. I got to be honest.
Okay.
In my first month, I asked if they had one. They didn't yet. So we got in a whiteboard. I got a whiteboard in a room, brought some teams inside. We started whiteboarding what we thought the journey looked like. And that just brought a lot of conversation to the table. We got clarity around who's going to own which part of the process. We identified.
Is this a cross-functional team or is this the CS team?
Well, the CS team is made up of professional services, support, and CS. And so we call it CX as a parent organization under the CEO. Now, that group has evolved and changed in the last 6 to 7 months I've been here. We've brought in marketing and sales into the conversation. And first look at the kickoff being a beginning and an opportunity to set that tone and that pace with the customer. And we talked about, okay, what can we do to delight that customer towards the end of that call so that they feel like they're in good hands, they're not going to be left out to dry. So what we did is ask the CEO to record a video. He used a cell phone in some instances when he was on the road traveling, or some instances he was in the office. And he just made a quick 30-second, 45-second video, personalizing it to the customer, using their names, maybe referencing a few specific parts of the deal that were important, and then pressed stop, sent it to me. We included it inside of that kickoff call we did with the customer. And at the close of that call, it was often you'd find all the customers nodding their head and smiling and getting a good sense that this company, Swimlane, has humanized this part of the process, and I trust it.
That's excellent. I mean, that is a powerful moment for people. So CEO records truly personal video to make sure that every kickoff call ends with this feeling that this company cares about me.
That's right.
It's great. So talk again about peaks and pits. So it seems like maybe you felt like there wasn't enough positive momentum coming out of that kickoff call, so you found a way to address it with a cross-functional team. Yeah. Talk about some other peaks and pits that you identified and maybe 1 or 2 examples of how you resolved those.
Sure. What comes to mind is a pit in the implementation process. So I won't give specific details around how long it takes to get up with Swimlane, but it was obvious to me that if we could reduce the time to first value, we would, in the customer's mind, increase the perceived value and realized value and during their contract with us. So we looked at measuring first time to first value, and then said, okay, what can we do to decrease this time to get there? Where are parts where we're contributing anxiety? Where do people have to search to find an answer to a question? When they ask me, why is it taking so long to get up and running? That's a red flag. We need to do something about that. And as a team, we want to look at ways to reduce that time to first value.
And what is, for your customers, what is first value? And do you have any tips on, for people who are listening that might not be highly conscious of first value? So for us at BombBomb, our first value is getting that first video sent and getting that first reply back, right? We want that aha moment where someone says, and it's the same thing you're creating on your kickoff calls, is this, oh my gosh, this is a different way to communicate. And so it's important. I think it's super important, not just for CS, but for everybody to recognize what first value is. Just the conversation alone is healthy. How did you all arrive at yours?
Yeah, we had discussion around that. Is it the aha moment that matters, or is it full value, or is it half value? I mean, it's not that important where you land, but as long as you're starting to measure these leading and lagging indicators, and asking the customer is always a good idea too. What's your goal, and when do you think we're going to get there? And ask them, the when question or the how. How will we know we've arrived? So what we'd like to look at is, are we truly delivering value? That means that Swimlane is up and running in production with data ingested, integrations done, workflows created, and is contributing true automation, right? And reducing some of that work that was once intended.
That's good. Implied right there, actually, you said it, maybe it was explicit, it's not implied, is that having this clear agreement with the customer is super important. Like, what is value to you? And let's make sure that we're both on the same page so I don't assume one thing and you assume another. I think you're in great shape and you're extremely disappointed. We have, if we go on without being clear about that.
That's where we start. In that kickoff call, I jump on, why did you buy Swimlane? And I may have heard it from the seller. In fact, I do this transition with the sales team to understand the reasons why they bought Swimlane. But I want to hear it not just from them, but I want them to say it in front of their broader team too. So the entire team on this enterprise account understands what direction we're heading toward at a big picture level. From that vantage point, really, we design everything else around achieving that. And we go back to it later and we say, hey, you mentioned back 6 months ago you wanted to achieve this. We have. Fantastic. What's next? Right? And that's the conversation. It's not too hard. It's really simple blocking and tackling, just clarifying the objectives and then being clear about that plan to get there, but not overwhelming them and then delivering on it.
That's great. Talk about the handoff there. You just kind of talked about a little bit of a sales to CS handoff. The salesperson has already told me what in their own language and in their own perception, what the customer needs and wants. So you're managing that handoff. What are some other handoffs that you mapped out, and which ones were particularly ripe for improvement?
This is a big one. The sales to customer success is often filled with tension, and I can understand why. If I'm not going to speak hyperbole, I'll just speak from experience. There are times where I don't give the benefit of the doubt that the person's going to treat this customer the way that I think they should be treated. Are they going to deliver? And they probably, sales, thinks the same thing about customer success. Will they deliver on this? I put my brand at stake, my personal brand at stake for this customer, brought them in. Come on, guys, you got to deliver. Like, that question is there. And that tension is good because we all are after the same thing. The struggle that I had initially was I wanted to be the hero. And so I didn't pay enough attention to this. And so I shifted to an abundance mindset. And with that abundance mindset, I partnered with sales to enable them to be successful. And in turn, I was too. And it started by asking the question, what is it that you need to see us do to feel really confident that you can hand over the customer to us now? And then just delivering on that. And it took time. It takes time every time. It took time at IBM. It took a little bit of time here. But we're in a great place now.
I love it. It's such a healthy way to approach relationships, not just externally with customers, but internally as well with your teammates. Because you're really talking about a mindset shift there, right? I mean, an abundance mindset is just a change in the way you look at everything else is happening the same. You just view it differently and the outcomes are dramatically different.
Right. We designed the process so that the customer is the hero. Right? We're trying to tell a story and we're their guide and we want them to be the hero. And so now we're just shifting the baton from guide to guide along their journey. And it's really a transfer of trust. So we just try to work with each other so that there's this handoff where the customer doesn't feel like they're repeating the same thing to different people at the Swimlane. We want to be able to communicate empathy, communicate understanding, and not waste their time.
It's great. Talk to me now about some of the things that don't scale. I don't imagine that you're probably turning on 500 new accounts a day, and so the CEO needs to make 500 videos a day. That's one that can probably scale to a point. Talk about some other things that you've chosen to do, even though on paper it doesn't really add up. It looks like, I don't know if we can scale this.
In customer success, we try to use a personal touch versus a custom touch when the moments really matter. Just like in marketing, one-to-one marketing has become very sophisticated, as you know, but so has our BS meter. We know when a machine sends us a message, and we know when a real human sends us a message. So we try to scale those announcements maybe around a new release being available or a known issue or a fix is now available. But when I'm speaking directly to a stakeholder, these are enterprise accounts over 100K each. So they need to know that it's a highly relevant message. And so I'm speaking directly in a relevant context. I'm sending one-to-one communications to them, and oftentimes I'm turning on that video. It may not be a recorded video, but these Zoom meetings, you won't have a call with me in CS without my video on. And that approach to comms with customers has now spread to other parts of our organization where more of my colleagues are turning on their videos. And having a little more nonverbal communication, having a face to recognize, increases trust and reciprocity. And those are just some things that we've been thinking about when we do these one-to-one things. Oh, one more thing I thought of.
Please.
These gifts, the gifts that we send out are not necessarily scalable. We pay high attention to these peaks when they achieve that first value or have gone live on a second use case. We try to send a meaningful gift. And we don't send it around Christmas time or times of the year where it's almost expected, right when you're about to renew. No, we try to do it at these surprising moments because those tend to stick.
Really important. And you're speaking my language, by the way, and talking about trust and reciprocity through face-to-face communication, really connecting with people eye to eye rather than just simply voice to voice. It really goes a long way. Something else you introduced before, I really want to talk to you about this customer advisory board that you just ran. We would have done this a few weeks ago, but you're preparing for this really awesome event that I'm excited to hear about. But talk to me a little bit about building the culture of your team and advocating for CS internally inside the organization, especially for the customer success leaders who are listening.
Absolutely. So the customer advisory board I'll talk to first, Ethan. I will talk about customer, the culture of customer success. So the advisory board is something that a lot of companies try to initiate from a product management perspective to get ahead of where the customers are going. They invite these senior level folks into a group of maybe 10 to 12 people like we did. And we ask them questions. Where are you making bets in your business? We're in this security, orchestration, automation, response domain. Why did you buy a product to solve this solution? Are you getting the return on the investment you've made? Where are some things or problems you think we need to address and find solutions to in the next year or two? We didn't ask them to rank features and solutions. We asked them to rank problems. Let us take on the heavy lifting of finding solutions and creating solutions as the experts. But we want our biggest customers, our most influential customers, that are huge advocates for us to help guide us. So that was a full day and a half event that I hosted here in Denver in late February. Went great. We had the executive team there and about 12 other customers.
Cool. And where did they come from? All over the world or across the country?
We invited a few from Australia and Europe, but they couldn't make it. So mostly just around the country.
That's awesome. And so how did you pick them again? These were some of your longest term clients or your highest value clients, or like what was it? For someone who thinks, okay, I want to do something like this. I want to get great customer intimacy. I want to build even deeper relationships with them. I want to learn from them directly. And by the way, congratulations on going to problems over the product itself. Again, just going back to Henry Ford's, I would have given him faster horses or whatever, that
right.
Kind of classic line is like, when you talk about the problems, it's up to the team and the company to figure out the creative solutions that make sense for them. But for someone thinking about putting something like this together, what were just the real basic nuts and bolts of from, okay, let's do this to, okay, it's happening?
Okay. Well, first I'd say go to Mike, Gospe, Mike Gospe. He is the authority and a great trusted advisor on this. I read a lot of his material online. I even spoke with him a few times. He's a great guy. So first off, I'm going to give credit where credit's due there. Second, start planning at least 4 to 5 months out. Select the venue, and then start to think about who you're going to invite. Have an invite come from the CEO. Those invites could be to long-standing customers or brand new customers. What you're looking for is people who are really bought into your vision, who are really excited about your product, and have a strategic perspective. This is not a user group. So you have to be careful about the level of and seniority of the people that you invite into this kind of conversation. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. And so was this at a hotel? Was this at your office?
So downtown Union Station, the Crawford Hotel was the venue for
cool.
accommodations. And then across the street at the Oxford Hotel, we used their stage room. A fantastic venue, and a lot of gratitude and thanks to that team.
Nice. And glad you got such great feedback on the event too, as it concluded. So double back, talk to me about building the culture of CS inside the organization at large.
For sure. I'd start with asking teams to observe or share their good and bad experiences with brands, what was outstanding and what wasn't, why. Talk about it with your colleagues. This is something I would have just in conversations in passing. About a month into starting at Swimlane, we had a big all hands, and the CEO gave me a couple hours with everybody in the whole company here in town to just spend time on customer success. So it took about 45 minutes to go through a pitch deck, but really spent the next hour and a half on game. We called it Churn Busters. So just designed it from scratch, had a number of different risks to retention presented to the 10 different teams. There were 5 that went head to head, and each of them prepared a response to how they would handle that risk. And then both teams presented what they would do, and the rest of the company voted which team had the better response. And it just started to get everyone thinking about, okay, retention matters, expansion matters. It's 5 to 7 times more cost effective to sell to your customers than to find and acquire a new one. And so it just shaped the culture to think about this. Now, I did have a colleague who told me, Jordan, this is just like a month ago. He said, when you spoke to the whole company, I was suspicious. I wasn't quite sure we were going to be able to achieve what we've actually come to achieve, and gave a lot of props. And it was a private praise, but we're there. It's taken some time to shift that culture, celebrating successes in the journey, highlighting comments from customers in the company-wide Slack channel is a big one, and then casting a compelling vision. I think I did that early on, and now we're starting to make milestones and achieve those.
That's a great little checklist of actionable stuff. So if you're listening, hit that 30-second back button and write a couple of those down, because those are just really simple, straightforward, practical things. As you say them, I say, well, gosh, that's so obvious. At the same time, there's so many of these things that we're just not doing that are easy, low-hanging things. So congratulations on getting broader company buy-in into customer success. The net result is a better customer experience, especially with the journey mapping that you've done. One of our core values here at BombBomb and on the Customer Experience Podcast is relationships. So I always like to give you a chance to thank or mention someone who's had a positive impact on your life or career, and to talk about a company that you think is doing customer experience really, really well.
You bet. Phil Gruber comes to mind. He's a local here in Boulder. Him and I met 10 years ago. And since we started our professional relationship when I was working at IBM, he was a great advisor, gave me advice on my career. Then it shifted a little bit later when he invited me to join his team and work for him. And that was such a delight, because he not only maybe oversold my abilities, he put me into positions where I used my strengths. I was stretched, challenged. And then when his boss asked me to work for him, he didn't hold on to me. He let me go and did even the thing that was not in his self-interest. And so we still have a great relationship. We go skiing together occasionally. And I'd say Phil Gruber is someone I want to just call out and thank.
That's great. We're all lucky if we have one person in our career like that, and hopefully we all have a few of them. Is there a company that you've had a great experience with recently, or great experiences over time? A company that kind of stands out to you as someone who really puts the customer first?
I'm trying to think of one that stands above the rest. I can think of a few examples that I think will weave into our conversation. One is Chipotle. About 10 years ago, 10 years ago, they used to, without notice, freely give free burritos to customers that they just felt like giving it to. And I thought that was a really unique way to create delight through surprise. It wasn't expected. It wasn't some kind of punch card where you buy 10, you get one free. It was just this delightful encounter that you have with their brand. That's what comes to mind, Ethan. I could probably think of others.
It's tough to beat a free burrito.
That's right.
That's a good one. So do you think that was like recognizable faces, or do you think it was just kind of random? Like, I'm feeling this lady. I'll give her a burrito. I like this guy.
It's possible. Recognize faces. I think that's one of the things. But what they did is they created advocates as a result. Mm-hmm. They went even as far with me, for example, by inviting me to be on their farm team. This is going back it's almost 10 years now. And that farm team was a bunch of people they wanted to create as evangelists. And they educated us on their whole food with integrity brand and the process and how they think and why they think that way. And it was a select group of people, but we authentically became evangelists for their brand with our networks. And I thought that was a really interesting way to approach the customer experience.
That's really interesting. Were you just a customer at the time, or did you have some professional relationship, or like how did that get going? How many of there were you? This is fascinating to me. I didn't know about the farm team.
No, it's true. It's 2010. 2011 is when it started. Yeah, and ironically, I can go into this a little bit. Cut this out if you want, but it was at a Chicago location where I met the CFO in the line at Chipotle. And in that moment, because I was so intrigued by the farm team and what was going on, I invited him to speak at the Kellogg School of Management where I was going to school. And he accepted the invitation. And a month later, he came and I introduced him in front of executives, and he talked about it in more detail. So those kinds of interactions with the brand just really developed this loyalty and genuine interest.
That's excellent. Hey, Jordan, this has been really fun. I think there are a number of super practical takeaways. I'm looking forward to going back through my notes. For people that want to stay connected with you or they want to connect with Swimlane, where are some places that you might send them?
Fantastic. So Swimlane, swimlane.com. Pretty straightforward. For me, love to connect with anyone that's listening. JordanOlivero.com. Great place to go. We're on Twitter, Jordan Olivero 1. That's about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. Really look forward to connecting again and connecting in person up in Denver sometime.
I look forward to it too. Thank you, Ethan, for having me.
Hey, I'll be honest. If someone reached out to me about joining the Chipotle farm team, I'd be open to that. Hey, if you want more stories about companies that are doing CX well, if you want more stories of people who are having positive impacts on lives and careers, and above all, if you want more conversations about how sales, marketing, and customer success experts are creating better alignment in pursuit of a better customer experience, then check out BombBomb.com/podcast. That's BombBomb.com/podcast. Or go to your favorite podcast player and check out the Customer Experience Podcast. Subscribe, give it a rating. I'd love your feedback. My name is Ethan Beute, and you can hit me up at Ethan, ETHAN, at BombBomb.com. Thanks so much for listening.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big 3, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.